Kelvin, that patch of stone pavement is slightly discolored, see? Stepping on it will trigger a trap, so watch out. Oh, right. The lass has a discerning eye. Thanks to Sarah-san, we are able to proceed without worry. All thanks to her indeed. Sorry, Sarah, please forgive stupid old me for doubting you again. Once we actually headed into Black Wind's hideout, Sarah fully utilized all of her sensing and detection skills to expose every single trap, both mechanical and magical, that had been set up on the path we were taking. Gerard and Eiffel were also quite impressed. Guess I should do a bit of self-reflection. What's the matter, Kelvin? You've been looking deep in thought for a while now. I was just thinking how great it is that you've become our comrade, Sarah. The high-spirited demon girl poked her head in front of mine inquisitively, so I reflexively reached out to pat it. Her silky fire-red hair felt wonderful, but in a way that was totally different from Eiphel's. Where in the world did that come from? Sheesh. Sarah looked away, her face bright red. But the fact that she silently let me continue probably meant that she didn't dislike the head pats. That said, we were deep in enemy territory, and Eiffel was starting to look at me like she wanted to be patted too. Being able to change gears quickly was certainly an important skill. We continued to explore the hideout while freeing the captured women we found along on the way. I would first scan a room with presence sensing, then erect silent whisper, then we would clear said room. The ring of keys that we'd taken from Hopper did indeed offer access to the various rooms throughout the bandits' headquarters. And we were able to steadily conquer the place without any trouble as a result. Most of the kidnapping victims were simply locked up in cells. But there were some who had suffered excessive sexual violence or who had been tortured and were in a state that I couldn't allow Eiffel or Sarah to see. Gerard and I focused on handling those rooms alone, with me casting clean on the victims and recovery circle on the floor of the room before moving on. We couldn't very well bring the civilians along while we fought, so we instructed them to hide in one of the rooms and left a Clotho clone behind as a bodyguard. Thank you, Big Brother, managed one of the little girls we had rescued. Despite being incredibly weak and barely conscious, she did her best to give us a smile. The girl was one of those whose body bore marks of torture. Her physical injuries had been healed by my magic, but her mental recovery would likely take time. Such atrocities were unforgivable, especially when perpetrated by those being lionized as champions. Looks like this is the last room. I could sense 3 people within. While making our way through the hideout, we had not encountered anyone besides Hopper who had seemed like they might be an adventurer, so chances were good that these 3 were the champions in question. Now then, I feel it's just about time for a well-deserved punishment. Hollow. So, what the hell's going on? I finally had some time to myself. I'll get straight to the point. It seems one of our kidnapping squads might have been wiped out. When Priscilla and Adu arrived, Kristoff immediately explained the situation. By the time he told them about Karna's squad never returning to the hideout, and how he had sent Hopper out to search the area, Priscilla had become extremely agitated. What are you doing? Have you forgotten that we're here on a top-secret mission from our home country? Keep your voice down. What are you going to do if the guys outside hear you? As always, the 3 of them were wearing black masks to hide their faces from their fellow Black Wind members. Hopper had done the same as well. Someone who could see their statuses directly with Annalai's eye was one thing, but in general, the 4 ringleaders were not particularly famous so far from Trison. Thanks to a court mage who was dispatched from their home country to alter the memories of all Black Wind members. As long as the 4 adventurers kept their masks on, the bandits would continue to think of Kristoff as their rightful boss without giving it a second thought. Unfortunately, the officers were a bit tougher than the rest, and memory alteration didn't work as well on them, so they were in the know about the chief being switched out. However, their minds had been scrambled in such a way that they were unable to question the change or even recall the name of their new leader. Even so, if one of those officers were to be caught and interrogated, they knew enough to land Kristoff and his party in very hot water. But what if, just what if Karna spills the beans about us? Then gone, no, all 3 other countries, and the Adventurers Guild too. All of them would be after us, wouldn't they? If that happens, we won't remain champions. Even worse, we could be branded as traitors. Why is this happening after we've only just gotten started? In sharp contrast to Priscilla's hysterics, Adu merely sat in silence, eyes closed, muscular arms crossed. Adu, can you say something too? Our fates are on the line here. All I want is to fight against strong opponents. I make my own fate. This muscle brain. Calm down, Priscilla. This is why I've dispatched Hopper to prevent any of those things from happening. Right now, we need to confirm the situa. Bam! Bam! As Kristoff was trying to calm Priscilla down, there was a loud pounding on the door. They both started at the sound, then turned their heads towards the noise. What is it? Chief, it's me. I've got an urgent report from Hopper. Huh, that was fast. That bastard sure does the job well when he puts his mind to it. But what could be so urgent? Is it something bad? Bad news is still information, right? Come on in and make your report. Why yes, sir. Click. Slowly, oh so slowly, the door swung open. In the corridor stood Kristoff's direct subordinate, with a sword through his abdomen. The handle of the sword was held by a young man clad entirely in black. It looked like there were a few others with him too. Why? I did as you asked. You said, you would spare me. Yeah, sorry, but that was a lie. We have absolutely no intention of letting a single one of you live. With those words, the stranger swung his sword, bisecting the bandit's torso as easily as cutting through paper. The top half of the body flew towards Kristoff and landed with empty eyes staring vacantly up at him. What the hell? Kristoff examined the intruder. Black hair, black robe, with matching shirt and pants underneath. A closer look at the sword revealed it to be a staff wreathed in magic. He had mistaken what it was at first since the magic was so condensed that it was visible to the naked eye. Hey there, champions. Looks like you guys have been up to quite a bit of mischief, haven't you? The man was smiling, but his eyes were cold. Thanks to their wealth of experience as adventurers, Kristoff and his party could tell at first sight that this fellow was very bad news. Hollow diamond, hollow diamond, hollow diamond, hollow diamond, hollow diamond, hollow. Hey there, champions. Looks like you guys have been up to quite a bit of mischief, haven't you? After taking care of the last Black Wind bandit, we faced off against the adventurers who had taken over the gang. I wasted no time in using Analyze Eye on all of them and uploading the data to the follower network. I also stepped aside to let Gerard and Sarah enter the room. You bastards forced my man to disable the trap on the door? According to his status, this was Kristoff, the mastermind behind the operation. The woman with jewelry jangling over every part of her body was Priscilla, and the guy with a shaved head and monk-like attire was Adu. Based on their statuses, it seemed like Adu was going to be more troublesome as an opponent than Kristoff himself. Oh, you mean the really powerful explosive magic circle? Nah, disabling it seemed like too much work, so we just had the dude sleeping over there open the door for us instead. Not like we had much choice, since the key is a fake, right? I chucked the ring of keys we'd taken from Hopper onto the floor. Although they did, in fact, open the vast majority of doors throughout the hideout, a remark about the boss's room key being a fake had come up when I used Analyze Eye on it. If we had tried to open the door with the dummy key, it would have triggered a lethal trap. Of course, Sarah's detection skills would have picked up on the trap's existence without the tip-off, anyway. This is Hopper's. Good guess. No need to worry about him now, though. So then, Kristoff, Priscilla, and Adu, what are you, champions of Trison, doing here with a bunch of bandits? Is kidnapping part of a champion's duty? All right, so you already know our real identities, sighed Kristoff, removing his mask. My first impression of his face was, well, he kind of looked like a bear. Is it just me, or does he look much more like a bandit than a champion? As you have pointed out, yes, I am Kristoff. Seeing as you already know so much about us, I take it you're also the one who did Incarna's group? Who knows? Hey, playing dumb. Okay. Seeing that Kristoff had already revealed his face, Priscilla and Adu followed suit and took off their own masks. HMPH. Now that you've learned our true identities, you won't be leaving here alive. I don't know who you are, but we'll grant you the honor of witnessing the strength of Rank A adventurers firsthand, cried Priscilla as she powered her jewels up with magic. Adu also brought his spear to bear. Opponents of your caliber are hard to come by. Let us exult in the fight. And there you have it. Looks like you guys have gotten a bit full of yourselves after defeating Hopper and my other subordinates, but we conquer tough opponents every day. You'll regret having come here down to the very marrow of your bones as we dispatch you from this world. Kristoff reached for a great axe hanging on the wall, which fell to the floor with a heavy thud. Look at that, they've already recovered from the shock. These people sure do change gears quickly. Hopper was the same way. Seems they've got the mental fortitude worthy of their rank, at least. By some stroke of fate, there are 3 of us, and there are 3 of you. So let us decide victory and Defa, Priscilla, dodge. Huh? Thunk. Things had already taken their course by the time Adu finished shouting. Wait, what? You're kidding, right? Sarah and Gerard had attacked Priscilla and Adu, respectively, at the same time. With a single smooth motion, all of Priscilla's jewels were shattered and Adu's spear crumbled to pieces. To be honest, I had been looking forward to some exciting combat, myself. But the revolting things that I saw on the way here made me change my mind. This is not going to be a fight, it's going to be a punishment, I spat while studying the remains of the items on the floor. Rank A magical jewels and a rank A cataract lance, a spear capable of taking whatever form its user wishes? Those are pretty nice equips. Sorry for destroying them. The objects that had been floating in the air while Priscilla was pouring magic into them were called magical jewels, and were support items used by mages to amplify their own magical power. The type of jewel determined the effects and ranking of the item, with diamond being the most powerful at rank A, ruby at rank B, and sapphire and emerald at rank C. There were others too, but those can be left for another time. Priscilla had been using diamonds. One could only imagine how stunned she was to see them destroyed in the blink of an eye. My jewels. We're in the middle of a fight, Priscilla. Eyes forward. Too late. Kristoff's warning proved meaningless as Sarah's hand slammed onto the back of Priscilla's neck. The woman's eyes rolled up into her head, and she instantly lost consciousness. The neck chop that I've only ever seen in manga and anime before. It's my first time witnessing it in real life. I guess possessing combat technique at rank S makes Sarah capable of anything she wants. Maybe I should ask her to teach me a few moves when we have time. Hey, Kelvin. This is a really boring way to end things. Can I play with her for a bit instead? As long as you don't kill her. See if you can extract some information while you're at it. Sure thing. Sarah replied in a sing-song tone. With the unconscious Priscilla under her arm, she merrily exited the room. Given the speed she was moving at, Kristoff and Adu didn't even have time to react. Eiffel, could you accompany Sarah and keep an eye on her? Understood, Master. Eiffel left her post in the corridor, where she had been keeping a lookout until then. All right, that's one down. Don't worry, we won't go so far as to kill you. We need you alive so that we can put you where you ought to be. Kristoff laughed scornfully. Talking like you've already won? If you guys are adventurers, you should know never to let down your guard. Adu. Pierce, Cataract Lance. The scattered pieces of Adu's weapons suddenly melted as if they were liquid, reforming into spears of water that shot towards Gerard. On top of having spear mastery at a high rank, their enemy also possessed blue magic, the skill related to the manipulation of water and ice. The combination gave him great physical compatibility with his weapon and even greater magical compatibility with it, since the spear was created from highly condensed water. His signature attack was also great at catching opponents off guard. But unfortunately for Adu, I had already conveyed all available information about his spear to Gerard. Your control is good, but regrettably, you are far too slow. Gerard accurately cut down each and every spear of water that flew his way. There wasn't a shred of hesitation in his movements. Hey, you sure about throwing your magic all over the place like that? I asked, somewhat amused. What are you? Cataract Lance, return. In a fluster, Adu quickly called back the water, which reformed in his hand as a solid spear. He's pretty quick on the uptake. Adu, what are you doing? Shouted Kristoff. Don't stop your attack. There was no point in continuing that move. The bastard completely saw through it, and maintaining the assault would only have been a waste of MP. On top of which, look at WH, that's? The spear in Adu's hand was only 2/3 of its original length. Hey, asshole, you did something to the magic of Cataract Lance with that sword of yours, didn't you? You have a good eye. As our opponent had guessed, Gerard's sword, Dainsleif, was capable of absorbing magic through its blade. It was a very powerful ability that could gouge away a significant amount of MP with a mere brush. I had experienced the effect firsthand while I was forging the damn thing, so there was no doubt about it. The MP that was absorbed could be either directed towards the sword's own attack power or released as a wave of energy. Gerard's previous fighting style was one that rarely used magic, so this feature of his sword had actually increased his repertoire of attacks significantly. The general function of the sword's ability was similar to Clotho's skill. But whereas absorption was more like a damage over time attack, with a wide area of effect thanks to the large volume of Clotho's body, Dainsleif's power was more of a single target burst damage attack. The reason Adu's Cataract Lance had become shorter was because Gerard had parried it with Dainsleif several times, stealing MP from it with every single blow. It's truly a pity that one as skilled as yourself has fallen into a life of depravity, sighed Gerard. This body of mine is solely dedicated to combat, Adu replied with a rasping laugh. I don't care where I am as long as I get to fight, and me being here is a result of that. Thanks to my choices, I have now met my greatest opponents ever. You and your party. I am convinced yet again that the path I chose was not a mistake at all. Is that so? Then I suppose there is no need for any more words. This is the end. Gerard swung his sword once again, with true force this time. Although Adu had been able to react easily enough to the other attacks, he fell unconscious at once, without having time to register what had happened. I used the flat of my sword, Gerard said to the fallen man. Your MP has been completely drained, but be glad that you kept your life. Adu's armor, which had rank A specs, had entirely caved in. Even though Gerard had gone easy on him, his opponent had still suffered significant damage. That's impossible. Adu was the strongest fighter in our party. To beat him like. I told you, didn't I? This is not a fight, but a punishment. You guys never had a chance of winning. I cast Radiance Lance at Kristoff's legs. ARR. As intended, the holy spears of light pierced both of his feet, nailing them to the ground. You bastard. Don't think for a second you're going to get away with doing this to a champion of Tricen. I don't expect to. This is likely going to cause diplomatic conflicts between Tricen and Turai. Without solid evidence, me being a mere adventurer isn't going to do much to alleviate the situation. If you understand that, then why? What do you mean, why? Champion or not, when you commit a crime, you become a criminal. Even children know this. Don't tell me this is news to you. That's not what I'm asking. I meant, hey, man, who cares about the details, right? We still have time. Until then, let's continue this little punishment of ours, shall we? The pale-faced Kristoff watched in horror as I pierced his body with a third Radiance Lance. Hollow diamond. About 2 hours after I began Kristoff's punishment, Sarah returned with Priscilla once again under her arm. Judging from how the latter wasn't moving a muscle, Sarah's playtime must have been quite intense indeed. Of course, the same could be said for Kristoff and Adu, who were lying on the floor in a similar state. There wasn't a single wound on their bodies thanks to my white magic, so at least there were no worries on that front. There was zero risk of them dying. I had made sure to hold back while I was meting out their punishments. As a safety precaution, I had told all of my party members to speak through the network while we were there. Just in case any of our enemies were only pretending to be unconscious and heard something we didn't want them to hear. They might think us strange, seemingly sitting around in total silence, but we couldn't care less about what they thought. It shouldn't be much longer now. Kelvin, I'm tired of just waiting around. Would you like to take over as Lookout, Sarah-san? Lookout's too troublesome. I'll leave that to you, Ephil. I feel like your skill set is more suitable for Lookout than mine, though, Sarah-san. Shall I take over? It seems like Ephil might be getting tired. Just as Gerard was about to stand up, 4 signals triggered the presence sensing that I had set up around the hideout. Presumably, it was the 4 heroes. They're here. They're here. Sarah and I nodded at each other, then passed the information on to Gerard, Ephil, and Clotho, who still had a clone in place to protect the kidnapping victims. We had already explained to the women that Clotho was a monster under my control, so hopefully they would convey that to the heroes if the 2 groups happened to meet. Even if the heroes decided to attack it, Clotho had diverted a large portion of its strength to the clone, which would enable it to slip away if necessary. We had also cleared all obstacles from the entrance of the hideout to the room that we were currently in, so the heroes finding us wasn't likely to take much time at all. Alright, guys, let's get ready to greet the heroes of Deramus.